Hi, Marcia. I see your name. I don't see or hear you. Hi. Now I see you. I don't hear you.
I should be okay. You hear me now?
Now I hear you.
Okay.
Now I hear you. Can I help you with something? Are you here for the Rashi class, Mark?
No, I'm here for the finance.
Well,
I'll trade you.
I assume it's in the library.
I'll trade.
Okay.
I'd rather go to the Rashi class.
Well, you're welcome. All right. So it's you and me. I don't know. And Stan has a conflict, so he asked me to make sure that he gets the video of the class after we're done. So we will definitely still have the class. Let me just find. All right. So Chayyei Sarah. And you have the text, right?
I have the text.
Right. Okay. Vayu Chayyei Sarah mea shanim ve'esrim shana v'sheva shanim shnei Chayyei Sarah. The life of Sarah was 100 years and 20 years and 7 years. These were the years of the life of Sarah. Okay, now, right, immediately what leaps out at you in terms of something that Rashi's going to look at?
Why are years repeated?
Right. Why? Right. In other words, exactly 100 years and 20 years and 7 years. Right. Why not just 127 years? Right. I mean, it's possible. It's not like it's impossible to say that in Hebrew. Right. Mea ve'esrim v'sheva shanim. Easy enough to say. Right. So. Therefore, I mean, have you looked at, if you haven't looked at the Rashi, don't.
Okay.
Okay, what do you think Rashi's going to do with this?
He's going to come up with some explanation for that, for why that was done. But beyond that, I can't come up with the explanation he's going to use.
Right, but you're definitely on the right track. Okay, so here's what it says. L'chach nichtav shana b'kol chlal v'chlal. For this reason, the word shana, year, was written after every unit, after every digit, the translation says. It's not exact translation, but close enough. Lamar lecha shekol echad nidrash la'atzmo. Ah, hi, Gail. All right, I see Gail. I don't hear her also, but we'll assume she'll figure it out. All right. So each phrase has its own interpretation. Okay? Batmea kavat esrim lachet. When she was 100 years old, she was like a 20-year-old regarding sin. Mabat esrim lo chata'a shehare ena bat onshin af bat mea belo chata'a uvat esrim kavat sheva liofi. Okay, so here's what it says. When she was 100, she was like a 20-year-old as regarding sin. A 20-year-old is considered as not having sinned because she is not liable to punishment. So too, when she was, and don't stop me here, okay, because we're going to get back to all this. So too, when she was 100 years old, she was without sin. And when she was 20, she was like a 7-year-old as regards to beauty. Okay. Now, this is a very problematic Rashi, right?
Yeah.
I mean, what's the problem here?
The problem, to me, how can you, a 7-year-old as regards to beauty, well, a 20-year-old without, as a 20-year-old who has not sinned because she's not liable to punishment? I don't understand that.
Because it's wrong.
Yeah.
That's why you don't understand it. I mean, most commentators would agree that somehow, now remember, when Rashi was writing this, there were no printing presses.
Correct.
This is all in manuscript, right?
Right.
The way it's written doesn't make sense.
It doesn't.
Right? I mean, so it's got flipped around. It should say, I really believe, when she was 100, she was like a 20-year-old for beauty and a 7-year-old for sin. Not like a 20-year-old for sin.
That makes more sense.
That makes more sense, right? I mean, first of all, I've known plenty of 20-year-old girls, right? I went to college.
Yes.
Right? I went to college and then I worked on a college campus. Right? And it is certainly not the halacha that a 20-year-old is not bat onishin. A 20-year-old is not liable to punishment for sin.
Right.
She most certainly is, right? Starting at 12. Right?
Yeah.
Right? So it's more likely to say that when she was 100, right? Instead of saying when she was 100, she looked like she was 20, okay?
That
or she
makes
was
sense,
as beautiful as a 20-year-old, right? And when she was 20, she was as sinless as a 7-year-old.
That makes much more sense.
That makes much more sense, right? And I think that has to be what it says. Let me just quickly look and... Yeah, okay, and that's what it says actually in Genesis Rabbah. Okay, if you look at, I mean, I'll read the commentary from Eitz Chaim. Okay, this is the Drash commentary. 127 years in the words. Right now, part of this is hard, and this is what I don't like sometimes when they explain to you a difficulty in the text, but translate it in a way that the difficulty isn't obvious, right? Mm-hmm. Because in the English here, it just says 127 years, right? And even in the note, it doesn't say 100 years and 20 years and 7 years, right? But so the commentary, the Drash commentary says, in the words of the Midrash, Sarah retained the innocence of a 7-year-old when she was 20, and the beauty of the 20-year-old when she was 100, and that's from Genesis Rabbah 58:1. Okay. Now, I mean, in other words, and I don't know that I've made this explicit before, but much of Rashi is not original with Rashi. Right, he's a digester of traditional commentaries. All right, okay. and he doesn't claim to be original, right? Yeah. I mean, he's not writing a PhD thesis. So if it says that in Genesis Rabbah, then I think it's pretty clear that the Rashi text that we have has become corrupted. Mm. Okay, and it doesn't mean as sinless as a 20-year-old and as beautiful as a 7-year-old, because that makes no sense whatsoever.
Absolutely, right.
And if Rashi thinks that 7-year-olds are, I mean, they may be attractive, but you're not supposed to be attracted to them. So, no, I don't think so. Okay. Shnei Chayyei Sarah, the years of the life of Sarah, Kulan Shavim L'Tova, all of them were equally good. okay, which is nice for her.
Mhm.
Most people who live to be 127, I'm not sure that the last few, well, nobody lives to be 127, but, you know, I mean, as we see, people don't always enjoy life equally throughout, their,
Not everybody ages well.
yeah, not exactly, not everybody ages well. All right. But Tamod Sarah B'Kiryat Arba hi Hebron Be'eretz Canaan B'Yavo Avraham Lispod L'Sarah Ulivkota. Sarah died in Kiryat Arba, which is Hebron, in the land of Canaan, and Abraham came to, it says, eulogize and bewail her. Lispod. I mean, it is true that in contemporary parlance, a hesped lispod is to eulogize. I'm not sure that that's the original meaning.
Uh-huh.
I think it's similar to wailing, right? It's like it's so. So the other English translations is to mourn for Sarah, okay? To mourn for Sarah and to weep for her. Okay, Kiryat Arba, and by the way, I mean, you may know that, today there is a town called Kiryat Arba, which is a large Jewish settlement right outside of Hebron.
I didn't know.
It was the first settlement created in the disputed territories. It was created on Passover 1968, when a group of Jews led by a man named Rabbi Moshe Levinger, they rented a hotel in Hebron.
I found these results.
I didn't ask you anything. My phone is talking to me. They rented a hotel, a Palestinian, an Arab hotel in Hebron for Passover, and they refused to leave. They just squatted and took it over, and so the compromise that was offered them, which is what they really wanted anyway, was to create a settlement just outside of Hebron. Okay, so, again, I mean, this all, it never loses its contemporary relevance. So Kiryat Arba, the city of the four, so named because of the four giants who were there, Achiman, Sheshai, Talmai, and their father. Another explanation because of the four couples that were buried there, man and wife. Adam and Eve, Abraham and Sarah, Isaac and Rebekah, Jacob and Leah. Okay, now I bet you knew that Abraham and Sarah, Isaac and Rebekah, Jacob and Leah are traditionally believed to be buried in Hebron, right? You know that.
Yes.
Did you know that Adam and Eve are buried there as well?
No, it was the first time I've seen that.
Well, now you. Okay. Vayavo Avraham mi Be'ersheva. Abraham came from Beersheba. All right, which, is interesting. I mean, and he just says he came from Beersheba. Now remember the last thing, pretty much the last thing that happened at the end of the previous parsha, right? Is the Akedah, right?
That's right.
V'yelchu yachdav el Be'er Shava. They went together to Beersheba. V'yeshev Avraham b'Be'er Shava, and Abraham dwelt in Beersheba, right? And then they tell him about, other more distant relatives who have kids. That's just an insert of genealogy, right? But the last thing that Abraham does is dwell in Beersheba, right? But Sarah died in Kiryat Arba, right? Now, why is she in Kiryat Arba and Abraham is in Beersheba? Rashi doesn't. It's an excellent question, right? To which nobody seems to give the answer. Okay, I mean, which maybe they were separated, right? I mean, there are lots of imaginative possibilities here, right? You did what? You almost did what? What if the angel hadn't said don't do it, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So maybe they were separated. I don't know. But Sarah dies in Hebron, and Abraham is in Beersheba when she dies. Okay. We don't know why exactly. It doesn't tell us. Now, Kiryat Arba and Beersheba are not that far apart, but they're not that close either.
Well, given how they traveled in those days, a little distant.
Right, especially how they traveled in those days. I mean, I'm sure it's not.
Oh, you're over 120. Or you're 120 and traveling too. I mean, how old was Abraham at this point?
Right. Well, if she's 127, then Abraham is 137. Okay. Now, here we get interesting. Lispod l'Sarah ulivkotah, to eulogize Sarah and to bewail her. V'nismacha mitat Sarah la'akedat Yitzhak lefish al yedei b'sarat ha'akedah asher nizdamen bana l'shchita v'chimat shelo nishchat parchat nishmata mimena v'meta. The account of Sarah's demise was juxtaposed to the binding of Isaac because as a result of the news of the binding that her son was prepared for slaughter and was almost slaughtered, her soul flew out of her and she died.
Whoops.
Right? She died. I mean, and it's not an unreasonable assumption. Right?
Correct,
I mean, right? Like I said, last week on Abraham and Family, right? We have the almost slaughter of Isaac, right? And then, next week on Abraham and Family, right? And Sarah dies, right? Mm-hmm. So according to Rashi, again, basing himself on Genesis Rabbah, when she found out what had happened or what had almost happened or what could have happened, right, she died. I mean, it reminds me of Fred Sanford and Sanford and Son, right? I'm coming to join you, right? I mean, that's what happened, right? Which I wrote about in my 2-minute Torah, right? Which is how we get the idea that Abraham was 33 at the Akedah.
Isaac was.
Isaac, rather, by doing the math. If we assume that Sarah died because of the Akedah, and she was 127 when she died, and she was 90 when Isaac was born, and Isaac becomes 37 at the time of the Akedah, right? Yeah. Which, to my mind, is a big deal, right? Because now again, I mean, I hesitate to, and this is the problem when you combine a sort of academic intellectual approach, right? But you still want to ask deep questions of the text, right? So do I assume that Isaac was actually 37, that Sarah was actually 127 in the sense of actual that we talk about? No. I mean, I don't even necessarily assume that they were actual people, right? But that doesn't mean that we can't question the text about their intentions and motivations and the motivation of the text, right? And when you read the Akedah story, right, forget about any midrash or commentary or whatever that you may have heard, right? If you read the story plain, how old do you think Isaac is?
He sounds like a child.
Right, a child. And
Yeah.
he's called the lad, right?
Right.
Right? I mean, I imagine elementary school kid.
Well, that's what I would think. Because why would an adult?
Yeah.
It's hard to imagine an adult
Right?
doing,
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, sounds like an elementary school kid.
Right.
But if the tradition makes him, instead of an elementary school kid, makes him 37, I mean, here's the question. Why does the tradition want to do that?
I can't figure it out.
Gail?
Well, that way Isaac is sort of aware of what's going on if he's an adult versus a child.
Right. He's aware of what's going on, and not only aware of, but a willing participant. Right? I mean,
That's what I have a hard time.
Right. You figure if he's 37, right, and his dad is 137, right? I mean, filial piety is wonderful, right? But if Isaac says, nuh-uh,
Right.
not happening, buddy, and he could prevent it, right? So I think, to me, I mean, there's a couple of thoughts. One is my own sort of heretical musings, and one is more traditional. Okay, my heretical musings is that I don't necessarily think Abraham comes out so well from this whole story, but I also think he is far less culpable if you're dealing with a 37-year-old rather than a kindergartner or first grader, right?
Yeah.
The second is that if you look at the liturgy of the high holidays, right, it talks about not only the merit of Abraham, but the merit of Isaac, right? And for there to be the merit of Isaac, Isaac has to be an adult.
Yes.
Right. I mean, there's no right. If you're a kid, you don't have the level of agency that you have as an adult, right? So I think that's the motivation for the tradition to make Isaac 37 years old. Okay, so now Abraham is in Hebron, Kiryat Arba, and he wants to bury Sarah, right? So he says, Ger v'toshav anochi imachem, I am a stranger and an inhabitant, a resident with you. Tnu li achuzat kever, give me burial property, imachem, with you, v'ekbara metim ilfanai, that I may bury my dead before me. But the word achuzah, right? I mean, so the Hebrew word, the shorish le'achoz, means to hold on to grab. Okay, so an achuzah means like freehold ownership, okay, in common law terms, right? It means that I own it and I can pass it on to my descendants, right? That's what Abraham is saying. I'm a stranger and a sojourner, a stranger and an inhabitant, a resident alien, but I want possession. I want full, complete ownership that I can pass on to my descendants, right? I am a stranger from another land, and I have settled among you. Therefore, I have no ancestral burial plot here. Right? I mean, that's the shot of it, right?
Yes.
You know, I'm not from here. Right? I mean, it's interesting in that sense that if you look at the greater Washington area, right, and people move here from elsewhere. I mean, that's true everywhere, but Washington, I think, has a higher percentage of transplants than, let's say, Baltimore or Cleveland.
Or yeah, almost to me, any major city. That was one of the things when I moved here. Everybody I got to know was from somewhere else.
Was from somewhere else, right? And therefore, people don't have ancestral plots.
Correct.
Right? And very often, you know, when somebody dies, their family is scrambling to figure out where they're going to bury them.
Mm-hmm.
Right? As opposed to, like, for example, when I was the rabbi in Norwich, Connecticut, I would say close to a majority of the funerals I did were for people who no longer lived in Norwich, and even nobody in the family lived in Norwich anymore, right? But they had been there 2-3 generations, and the family plot was still in Norwich.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, Stu Rutchick's mother. Right? One of the first funerals I did in Norwich was for Stu's mother. Right?
Oh.
Little did either of us know that 7 years later I would be his rabbi.
Right. Yes.
Right?
Stu also sold off the Hilat Shalom plots, and that's where he intends to be buried, I believe.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I think they sold them to the Penners.
Oh, okay. All right. That I didn't know. But, all right, so people are scrambling to find a burial place. So, you know, Abraham, I'm not from here. Right? I mean, and where's he from? He's from, he's from somewhere in Iraq or Turkey, right? He's not going to go back there to bury his wife, right?
Well, of course, because they've also cut their ties to that land.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And as we'll see shortly, completely cut the ties, right? Right? Do not let my son go back there under any circumstances.
Yeah.
Right? So, I'm a stranger and a settler. That's the pshat. Okay? That's the plain meaning. Umidrash agada, but the agadic meaning is im tirsu hareini ger ve'im lav ehyeh toshav ve'etlena. All right, so he's saying, if you are willing to sell me burial property, I am a stranger. Right? In other words, I'm asking you to sell this to me on the basis that I'm a stranger. And if you agree to sell this to me, then great. But if not, then I'm going to be an inhabitant. And I'm going to take it from you by force. Right?
Mm-hmm.
How can Abraham be justified in taking it by force?
Well, God promised him.
God promised him. Right. God promised him the land. Right? So really, I shouldn't have to pay you for this because it really belongs to God. And God has already said, I give you this land.
Yes.
Right? But
one small problem.
What's that?
The people of Hebron don't know God.
The people of Hebron don't know God, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
and then isn't there another thing too about the land within to give land to a stranger? The land belongs to the community.
Right. I
in
mean,
ancient
I
times.
don't. There are certainly right. There are certainly cultures in which this is the case.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I don't know enough about Hittite beliefs about land possession to say that with confidence about
I don't
the
either.
Hittites per se.
Yeah.
But you're right. Exactly. Right. I mean, it could be that, we have no ability to even sell you this land. Right. And that's exactly what happens. I mean, I didn't bring the Rashi for the next few verses, but that's exactly what happens is that the Hittites say, just go ahead and bury her. Okay. We honor you. You are a guest, but you're an honored guest, right? So go ahead and bury. But Abraham says, no, that's not what I want. Right? I want an achuzah. Right? I want to own it and be able to pass it on. I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm the type of crazy person that needs pretty much everything that falls into my hand. Okay? And if you park your car in a garage and you get the ticket and you read the fine print on the back, right, it will say something to the effect of this is a license and not a lease, right? In other
Right.
words, right, you are paying for permission to park your car. You are not renting the spot where your car is parked, right? You do not have possession of that spot,
Mhm.
right? Not temporarily, and all the more so not permanently. Oh, I parked here and I can will this parking spot to my my heirs. No. Right?
Yeah.
You
That'll
don't
work.
you don't own the spot. You haven't even leased the spot. You have purchased the right to use it. You haven't leased it, right? And that's what they're willing to give Abraham. And then you might say, but wait a second, what does that mean to just sort of allow him the use of a burial plot, right? But remember, I mean, and I understand this more actually, having been to New Orleans a couple of weeks ago, right? Where they bury above ground,
Yes.
right? And they wait a year and a day, right? And then the corpse has essentially disintegrated and it's on a shelf and there's an open space behind the shelf, right? And the next time they need to bury somebody, they just push the remains off the shelf and it falls into the back, okay?
Yeah.
And we didn't do it precisely that way, right? But if you look at the above ground burial chambers from, now this is much more recent than Abraham. It's like the Second Temple period, right? But they would do exactly that. They would lay the body on a shelf, right? And then the flesh would deteriorate and they would gather the bones. They would gather the bones, right? I mean, I don't know. One of the most amazing things I ever saw was the monastery of Santa Caterina in Sinai, which is the oldest functioning monastery in the world. It's like from the 6th century. And they have what's called a charnel house, okay? Every monk that's ever died there, right, they have his bones, okay? And it's not even like intact skeletons, other than St. Stephen who sits on a throne in abbot's robes. Okay, the skeleton of St. Stephen sits, but the rest, they have piles of shins. Okay, and piles of hands and piles of forearms, and hundreds of skulls, right? So it's entirely possible to be loaned a burial place, right? Entirely possible, but that's not what Abraham wants. He wants possession. He wants ownership. Okay?
Okay.
All right, so now, verse 13. V'yidaber el Ephron ba'oznei am ha'aretz lemor, and he said to Ephron, the owner of this cave, in the hearing of the people of the land, saying, Ach imatalu shema'eni. Oh, if only you would listen to me. Natati kesef hasadeh. I'm willing to give you the price of the field, the money for the field. Kach mimeni, take it from me. Ve'ekpara et meti shama, and let me bury my dead there. Okay? I'm willing to pay. Okay?
Yes.
Ach imatalu shema'eni, right? If you would only listen to me. Ata omer li lishmo lecha ulikach bechinam. You tell me to listen to me and take it for free. Ani efshi b'kach. That's not what I want. Please listen to me. He's saying lu. The word lu generally means if. Okay, so when Abraham says, if only you would listen to me, actually, I mean, that's actually an idiomatic phrase in English too, so it's not difficult for us.
Yeah.
Right? But it might be difficult if in another language. If you would only listen to me, then what? Right? So he says lu is the same as halavai, right? If only. Okay? Natati, I am giving, I have given. Donne in Old French. Okay, I don't know Old French or New French.
Well,
Right?
donner means to give in current French.
Right, donne means to give in current French. I figured, right? Like a donation.
Yeah, just like
From
the Latin.
From the Latin.
Donation.
Right. Okay. Muchan hu etzli v'halavai natati l'chakvar. In other words, I have it, right? I've got the money, right? I got it right here. I got it right here. Just let me give it to you.
Yeah.
Okay? And so, they're having this sort of highly formal negotiation, right? And then Abraham said, okay, look, just take it. Just take it. I mean, what is a piece of land worth, say, 400 shekels between us? Okay? But what is he really doing? He's stating the price.
He's stating a price because if you get something for free, they could always take it back too.
Right, exactly. But the point is, right, rather than, he's still, they're doing this sort of elaborate formal dance, right?
Yes.
So Abraham can't say, okay, how much is it? Right? He can't say how much is it because that would be a loss of face to Ephron,
Mm-hmm.
who's insisting that you just take it, right? Now, does he really want Abraham to just take it? I doubt it. Right? Like I said, in one of my high holiday sermons, right? If I was the kind of person who said, mi casa es su casa, and really meant it, right? Who does that, right? That's the norm, right? You know what mi casa es su casa means, right? Right? Somebody goes into your house, and in the Spanish speaking, mi casa es su casa, right? Or anything actually, right? You come into my house, and you see a nice vase, and you say, "What a beautiful vase." right? I'm supposed to say esuya. It's yours, right? Now, you're not really supposed to take it, right? But so I mean, let's play that out, right? You come into my, oh, what a beautiful vase. Oh, it's yours. Oh no, I couldn't possibly. Oh yes, please take it. No, I couldn't possibly. Oh, Marcia, what is a $50 vase between the two of us? Just take it. Right?
Right.
I mean, that's what this is, right? So now he knows what the price is, and again, just like I have no real knowledge of Hittite land use norms, I have no idea what land was worth in Hebron at that time, but the commentators seem to all think that 400 shekels was a wildly inflated price.
Okay.
Okay. So, Vayishkol Avraham le'Ephron. Now, Ephron has been spelled all along as Ayin Pei Resh Vav Nun, and here's just spelled Ayin Pei Resh Nun, no Vav. Okay? It's spelled, in other words, it's spelled, this is what's known as chaser, it's defective. Okay? Lefisha Amar Harbe Ve'filu Ma'at Lo Asa. Right? He said a lot but did nothing. Right? In other words, he promised the cave as a gift, but he didn't give it. Right? He took a great deal of money for them because these are centenaria, 100 smaller shekels, as it is stated, over l'sochar, merchant weight. All right, so I don't really understand this, but again, he says these are centenaries, centeniers, or centeniers in Old French, i.e. 100-unit weight. Okay, so it's a lot of money. It's not 400 like little shekels, it's 400 big shekels. All right, but it's a lot of money. So now, question. This whole story of Abraham buying the cave, does this say anything about the current Israeli-Palestinian dispute?
Interesting. That the cave, that land.
Right. It is a flashpoint to this day.
Yes,
right?
Yeah.
It is split between a Muslim prayer hall and a Jewish prayer hall, right? And they fight over it all the time. But what's also I find of interest, as somebody who, has studied the role of religion in politics, right, is that you can construct a right-wing Israeli narrative out of this account or a left-wing Israeli narrative out of this account. Okay? Here's the right-wing narrative. Okay. Abraham bought it. Abraham bought it 3,500 years ago as an achuzah, okay, a possession which he can pass down to his descendants. Who are his descendants? We are.
Right.
We inherited it from Abraham. Abraham bought it, paid full price. Achuzah, it's ours. Muslims, go away. Right?
Right.
now let me construct a left-wing narrative,
Okay.
right? And this is explicit in the Rashi, right? Rashi has Abraham saying, look, God promised me this land. It belongs to me. I could just take it, but nevertheless, I'm going to pay for it, right? Why?
It's the right thing to do.
It's the right thing to do, right? I'm not the only person in the world, right? If I want to live in peace with my neighbors, I have to recognize that they also have rights, right? And nobody is saying that in the religious sphere, right, the entire land doesn't belong to the Jews. In the religious sphere, the entire land belongs to the Jews, right? But there are other people living there too. And if we want to live in peace with them, we have to recognize their rights also.
Correct.
Well,
Go ahead, Gail.
the whole thing with the fact that they use the word ger for Abraham living there.
Right. Right, exactly. Right. So, but it's, it is, to me, it is fascinating how this has real world implications, right? And it's also fascinating, right? I mean, Lincoln said this during the Civil War, right? Both sides pray to the same God and both sides read the same Bible, right? And I said, I actually was interviewed by a student, a college student today who's doing a sociology paper on Judaism, and she asked me, well, how do you decide what you're going to preach on Saturday? And I said, I always talk about the Torah portion. I always talk about the Torah portion. It's always connected to the Torah portion. Having said that, if you've been doing this for a while, you can find a way to talk about any subject under the sun based on any Torah portion.
Right. And
Right.
yeah, that's true.
Right. And so, I mean, the question then becomes with this story, I mean, are people really learning from what the story says, or are they making the story say what they want it to say that's already their preconceived notion?
That's
right. And so to get back, I know I've used these terms before, exegesis and eisegesis.
Yeah.
Right? Exegesis is explaining what the text actually says. Eisegesis is making the text say what you want it to say. All right. And now here's what the cynics say, but I think is true, is that when I do it, it's exegesis. Right? When you do it, it's eisegesis.
yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So let's go on. We're going to skip a bit. So now we're on 24. Now, again, I'm gonna make a little bridge here. Okay. So now Sarah has died. Isaac is still not married. Okay. Hagar and Ishmael are like out of the picture.
Yeah.
Right? So Abraham is now worried what's going to be with Isaac. Right? What's going to be with Isaac? Am I going to have heirs beyond Isaac? Right? And these are kind of like two basic needs, right? Land and progeny, right? Land and progeny. Taking care of the land, now I need to worry about progeny, right? So Abraham makes his servant, he says, you're going to go back to my ancestral home and find a good wife for my son Isaac. Okay? Ve'im lo tovei ha'isha lelechet acharecha, if she doesn't want to come with you, the woman that you find, v'nikita mishvuati zot, rak et bani lo teshev shama. All right, you find a woman, right? And in other words, but you know what's relevant is, right, the servant has says, okay, so Abraham says, you go back to my ancestral home and find a good woman for my son to marry. And the servant says, okay, great, but what if she doesn't want to come? You know, she'd make a wonderful wife, but she doesn't want to come, so should I bring Isaac there instead?
Whoops, yeah.
No way, under no circumstances, right? On no account must you take my son back there.
Yes.
The Lord, the God of heaven, who took me from my father's house and from my native land, who promised me on oath, saying, I will assign this land to your offering, he will send his angel before you, but if the woman does not consent to follow you, you shall then be clear of my oath. Okay? V'nikita mishvuati v'gomer, you will be absolved of this my oath, and take him instead a local woman. Tikachlo isha mibnot aner eshkol umamre. Take from a local woman. Rak et bani lo tashiv shama. Don't return my son here. This only is restrictive. Beni eno choser aval Yaakov ben beni sofo lachzor. Okay, my son is not going back there, but my grandson will, right? And Jacob did, right? Jacob did go back to the ancestral home.
That's right.
Right? So when he says, right, under no circumstances are you to send my son back there, right? When he says son, he means son only. He doesn't mean all my descendants. He just means my son. Okay? Now, the last Rashi that we're going to look at. So the servant is taking camels, right? He's bringing, in other words, the servant is all right, fine. Now I understand the task, right? Find a wife for Isaac. If the woman doesn't want to come, don't come back and get Isaac and bring him there. I've given it a good shot, and I'm released from my oath. So now I'm going to go, and I'm going to take 10 camels. The servant took 10 camels of his master's camels. V'yelech v'chol tuv Adonav biyado. He went, and all the good things, all the best of his master was in his hand. Vayakom v'yelech, and he got up and he went el Aram Naharaim, to Aram Naharaim el Ir Nachor, to the city of Nachor. Okay, 10 of his master's camels, right? Well, why does it have to say, and right, not even 10 of his master's camels. 10 camels of his master's camels, right?
Yeah,
so there's a bit of superfluous verbiage here, right?
Yeah.
He could have said he took 10 camels. Well, where they come from? Obviously his master's camels, right? Yeah. Or it could have said he took 10 of his master's camels, right? But 10 camels of his master's camels, well, what does that mean? Well, his master's camels are special camels, right? They are special camels, right? They are the best camels. Lots of people think so, right? Everybody is saying my camels are the best camels. There's never been these camels like this before or since, right? The best camels, right? What makes them so special? Necharin hayu mishar gemalim. They were distinguished from the rest of other camels. Shehayu yotzim zmumim mibnei hagezel shelo yiru bistot acherim. All right, what was so special about Abraham's camels? They were muzzled. Why were they muzzled? So that they couldn't graze in other people's fields, right? In other words, Abraham is like super duper duper honest, right? He does not want his camels to graze in other people's fields because that would be theft. Okay, all the best of his master was in his hand. He wrote a gift deed to Isaac for everything he owned so that they would hasten to send him their daughter. Okay, so in other words, frankly, I'm not sure how Rashi gets this out of the text, right? But when it says, the best of Abraham's, it's not even Abraham's anymore, right? Abraham gave this to Isaac.
Yeah.
So that the servant could legitimately say, the guy I want you to marry is a wealthy guy, right? Not the son of a wealthy guy, but he himself is wealthy, right? And all of this stuff is actually his, all right? And they went to Aram Naharaim, Aram of the two rivers, because it is between the city is located between two rivers. Okay? Questions, comments? I kind of feel bad for the camels, right? I mean,
the muzzling.
Yeah, right? I mean, which is kind of interesting to me in the sense, it's not exactly the same, but the Torah will later explicitly prohibit muzzling an ox
while it threshes,
while it's plowing.
Yeah.
Right? If you want to make the ox plow, that's fine, but if the ox wants to munch, can't prevent it.
Right.
Right? But here, now of course, the ox is plowing in your field, right?
Right.
Not somebody else's field.
And it's a dry.
What?
It said it's dry country, and therefore, grazing. This is valuable, and
right. But the point is that Abraham is super duper honest.
Right. He's going beyond.
Right, and his camels are actually noticeable, distinguishable. They are muzzled to prevent, vandalism or whatever you would call it. All right, very good. Thank you.
Thank you. This is very interesting.
Thanks for joining. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.